everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. And to those who are new, thanks so much for checking out my channel. Today I am going to talk about the books that I read in May. I read 12 books altogether in May, which is not as much as usual for me. 5 of those books were for the Mondays with Margaret series. So please check that series out if you are interested in ATWOOD books. And I will leave a link to those videos in the description box below. And I also read one book for the 100-day commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. And I will share all of those books in my next video in the Kwibuka Read series. So I will leave a link to that playlist below, and I'm hoping to have the next video out sometime this week. And then that just leaves me with 6 books to talk about, so let's get started. One of the reasons that I think my quantity of books is down is because several of the books were huge books. One of the Margaret Atwood books was over 600 pages, and this brick of a book, the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie, is over 500 pages. I'm not going to talk about this book again because I did an entire reading vlog about it, but I will leave a link below to that video. So I do want to say a huge thank you to Christine and Karen for buddy reading this with me. Probably took us almost 2 months, and if it wasn't for them, I probably would have DNF'd it and it would have stayed on my shelf for another couple decades. So the next book is a historical fiction novel, Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon, and I started reading this book near the end of 2020. I got about maybe 70 pages in, and I knew that I was going to really like it, so I set it aside because I had other books to read, and I wanted to read this when I had the time to do it just in like a couple of sittings. So I finally got back to it, and I loved this book. It's a bit of I think I would call it like a contemporary Western. It takes place in the 1850s, and it's about a wagon train heading west along the Oregon Trail. Naomi May is only 20 years old, and she is already a widow. She is with her parents and her siblings, and she's trying to help her mother, who is ready to give birth. And she meets John Lowry, who is half Pawnee, and his character represents people who kind of don't belong with either of their parents' people. And John is helping the group over some very difficult terrain, and then will most likely separate from them. So Naomi and John are attracted to each other, but John tries his hardest to not get attached to her. And the group experiences horrible deaths and losses. They overcome many obstacles, and their journey is far from easy. And this only makes keeping Naomi at a distance harder for John. So this story really grabbed me from the beginning, and now I want to read more of Amy Harmon's books because her writing is simple yet captivating. And this story was based on some real life characters, and I think there could be a sequel to this. I would have loved to have had more of the story, and I loved how Naomi was young but also a very strong and capable woman, and that she accepted John for who he was, and in so many ways he was an outcast. So next is another book that I was really curious about. It's a psychological horror book called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And I love the cover of this book. The antlers have this neat feel. It kind of feels like driftwood. I just think it's so cool. So this is my first time reading this author, and I was impressed at how this story kind of came together. The story is divided into 3 sections, and it's about 4 friends, Gabe, Cass, Ricky, and Lewis. And 10 years before, they went out on a hunt together, and they ended up on land that was for elders only. And what happened that day has haunted all 4 of them ever since. And this story is told in a really interesting way. The first section really sets the mood and kind of creates this ominous feeling. And I was sucked in by that. And then I thought the book was going to go one way, but then it ended up going in a completely different direction. And that happened, you know, a couple of times for me throughout the novel. And my guess is that Indigenous peoples would probably be able to relate to things in this story in greater depth than myself as a non-Indigenous person. Having some experience with reservations and Indigenous storytelling and traditions would probably be helpful. What I understood about the message of the story, which I thought was told in a very powerful way, was the importance of our relationship to nature and how we treat nature. So not only how it affects nature, but human beings as well. And there is an element of nature taking revenge and the need for respect and honor of all creation. And for me, there is also the theme of intergenerational trauma and the desire to stop the cycle and to protect the younger generation, while also empowering them to face their future. So I love that a strong young female character is used in this story. And also an FYI that the Jolene in this story is not me. I had some, that there are some really gory scenes. Animals and people get killed. And although these scenes are not pleasant to read, they are written incredibly well, and they definitely made an impact on me as the reader. If you can handle gory scenes, then I really do recommend this one. So next is a picture book called We Dream Medicine Dreams by author and illustrator Lisa Boivin. And I absolutely loved how colorful and vibrant the pictures are, and I will show you just some of that. This is like the inside cover. Show you a couple more. So, this is a story about a young girl and her grandfather. And the grandfather is ill and in the hospital, and he prepares the girl for his death, teaching her how they will still be connected using Indigenous traditions and teachings about the animals. And this is such a beautiful story about love, loss, grief, and the importance of our ancestors. So if you have children in your life, then this would be a lovely book to read with them, or even as a gift. Next is a historical fiction biography war novel written by a Canadian author. The Willow Ren by Philipp Schott is unlike any other war novel I've read because it is written from a very different perspective. So Ludwig Schott is the real life father of the author, and he is the narrator of the story, and he's 6 years old at the beginning and 15 by the end of the book. The story begins in Germany before World War II begins, and the anticipation and tension of the war and its subtle movements are written to perfection. Ludwig's father is a senior Nazi officer and philanderer, and Ludwig's mother is a depressed anti-Nazi mother with 6 children trying to survive, and Ludwig and his older brother Theodore are constantly being impressed upon by the propaganda. And at 9 years old, Ludwig and his brother, who is 13, are sent to a Hitler youth camp. And I learned a lot about the camps, which is something that I knew, I'd say, pretty much nothing about. Ludwig is an introverted and bright kid who is drawn to nature, especially birds, and he loves to read, and he really looks up to his older brother. He is constantly trying to figure out what is going on around him regarding the war and within his own family dynamics. He uses his resourcefulness in order to deal with bullying and in order to survive, and he becomes the hero of the novel. And I appreciated that the last chapter is told by the author, who gives an explanation of how the story, came to be and what was based on truth. So this is a fantastic novel to read if you are interested in World War II, and even if you think, you've read enough books on the subject, I think that this one may give you a new or at least a different perspective. And the last novel is another Canadian author. Tatooine is by Jean-Christophe Rehel, and it's translated by Katherine Hastings and Peter McCambridge. And I was interested in this book for two reasons. One, it was longlisted for Canada Reads this year, and two, I would like to read more novels written by French Canadians. It's a gap in my Canadian literature that I'm hoping to fill. So this novel has a list at the back, which I thought was great, with about, I don't know, 15 books maybe that are written by French Canadians. So I might check some of those out. The narrator of this novel is never named, and there are no chapters. It is written in a way, it's like a stream of consciousness of this young man who lives in a basement apartment in Montreal. And the young man has cystic fibrosis. He has a hard time holding down a job. He doesn't seem to have many friends, and he's depressed and quite lonely. What makes him endearing is his incredible imagination and dry sense of humor. I enjoyed the references to pop culture and the way that he used his imagination to make his life less mundane and more bearable. I had hoped that the ending would have been different, but this is an enjoyable book for, readers who like character-driven novels, and if you don't mind being, in someone's head for a few hours, then this could work for you. So those are the books that I finished in May. Hopefully some of them are new to you and maybe pique your interest. I will list all of the books and authors that I mentioned in the description box below. Please let me know if you have read any of these books, or if they're on your list to read. Were there any books that you read in May that you think I would enjoy? And are there any that maybe you read and you didn't enjoy? I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget to make every day an adventure.